Random Stuff Day.
Okay, yeah, there we go. There's an intro for you. Okay, welcome to your Saturday morning. We're back on a Saturday morning for a little while at least. I have been told I'm a little loud when I do these shows because I got to watch it today, But Jared and I have been talking, and this time we were like, let's hurry up and start the show because you guys always miss the good stuff in the first 20 minutes when we're talking. And it's going to be Random Day. Random Day. Cavern of Chaos, Crossroads of Infinity. Is that not a title? It's kind of soothing now. But so what have you been into?
So what have I been? Well, comic shops actually started shipping again.
Yeah, I saw that.
I actually went to my comic shop last Saturday after the show, and then went. Let me pull out 2 weeks worth of comics.
Nice.
Which is like 8 comics.
Well, I've got a bunch of stuff from eBay, and amazingly enough, it's all shown up between. One came in yesterday, but it's going to be today to Tuesday when everything.
The Barking Dead, which is the Cerebus in Hell, got 2 of them because they came out in the same. This is Green Dante, Green Virgil. Each Cerebus in Hell is a one-shot with a different parody cover. So
yeah, I quit getting them. I think the last one I got was his Crisis one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like just these 2 issues I noticed. Whoops. There's only a few of us still getting them because he just started putting numbers up there. This is copy 1121 of 1684. So there's only where's my camera? 1684 copies of this. So it's not selling a lot.
No. I mean, I'm glad there's new Cerebus stuff, but I can honestly say this is the first time I can really say I totally get it. It's an uncomfortable read for people where he's pasting the Cerebus photos and they're sideways in the book, and
I like it because I understand people not liking it because it's very niche.
That's what I'm saying.
Really, really niche.
Yeah,
if you don't like jokes that. About Cerebus in Hell, which is kind of a narrow area, so he expands it at times.
Dante's Hell, if people know
Dante Inferno Hell. So it's really neat. It's so much more niche than Cerebus, which is niche in and of itself. So it is no wonder that, like the Barking Dead, there's 2,228 copies because there are people who collect these just for their covers. Just so if it's a Walking Dead cover, it's going to do better than a.
I'm actually exhausted when I read those, and I don't retain it to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't retain it either, but I like them. Noted. This is one of those books that. I don't get to right away all the time, and sometimes when they're on my shelf, I'm like, gotta get another Cerebus in Hell there. I don't know if I want to, but then when I actually read it, I very much enjoy it.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same, exactly the same, the same. Yeah.
So I'm just like, I just put it on my pull list, and when I get around to it, I get around to it. Speaking of a book I almost enjoy, this is 20XX, by Lauren Keeley and Jonathan Luna. The Luna brothers. This is one of the Luna brothers. He's been doing his own stuff with, and I think he's had a different female writer on his last 2. I'm like wondering if he's writing with his girlfriends just because they changed. I'm like, who is this woman who's writing with that? There's never a comic book writer I've heard of, but this one is it's letting me down. This is only issue 4, but it's kind of the X-Men in that. Takes place in the world where a pandemic hit, and if you survive the pandemic, which there's only a little chance if you get it, you get like psychic powers. You get some sort of mental powers. You can read minds. You can move things with your whatever it is. I don't even know.
Right on.
But you're not allowed to. It's a crime to use them. And I think it takes place in Alaska.
I'm not going to lie. That sounds like some Philip K. Dick stuff for real.
It's a pretty interesting premise. And I usually like the Luna Brothers stuff, and I liked like Alex and Ada, which was by Jonathan Luna and a different woman writer. But this one, there's just so much explaining going on that it gets tiresome. It's kind of like
exposition, yeah,
and I think it takes place in Alaska, and with this one woman who just got powers, so she just survived the virus or whatever it was, and she got powers. Now she's got to register, and she finds out and if you get these powers, you also kind of become an outcast. So there's like little societies of so it's basically two gangs, each with powers who are rivals, but if they use their powers in public, they're gonna go to jail or whatever. So it's kind of like it's the exact original premise of the X-Men, but there's so much explaining of the powers going on, and it's just like I said when I showed this off, I hate to say something's too wordy, because if it's good writing, it's not too wordy. But if it's not good writing, it's just like, matter of fact, the last issue I read. Listen, I read my comics twice usually. I mean, get
that off there.
There's just so much explaining going on.
Yeah.
Like the last issue I read, I usually read my comics twice. I get them, I read them like the first week I get them, I put them back on my shelf in the to be read spot, and I read them like maybe the second or third week after I got them, before I file them away in wherever they go. The second time I read through this, I skipped every other balloon, and it just worked better.
That's actually what I was going to ask there, man. Usually, does it serve the story? If you can skip it and it doesn't change anything. And that's been a big problem with who was that dude on Spider-Man for so long? Who did the Superior Spider-Man? Huh?
Dan Slott?
Yeah, Dan Slott. I read an issue where Spider-Man was in Japan, and he took a whole page after Spider-Man got jumped by a bunch of Japanese guys because he's in Japan, And then there's this one whole page you could have ripped out of the book that had nothing to do with the plot, where he's going, "Is it racist of me to be beating up Japanese people?" And I'm like, "What is this? What?" And then you can skip and that was like the last Spider-Man I read. I wasn't really buying it regular, but I came across it, and I'm like, you could. And I said it when I read it. I can rip this out, and you never know it was. It had nothing to do with the story. That drives me nuts. It's not the topical stuff. It's what's this got to do with the story?
See, I don't mind if as long as it's good writing, it doesn't matter. That's the problem. It's only too wordy if the writing's not good.
Mm.
If you're not interested in what they're saying in the balloons, it's bad writing, and it's going to be too wordy.
Paulo's got. Wait a minute, Paulo. Before we move on, Paulo's got a.
Sneaky. Yeah, it's a visual mess too, because there's just so many balloons.
Yeah,
that's just like. And I usually like I said, the Luna Brothers have done some good stuff. Well, and even Jonathan Luna by himself, Alex and Ada was real good.
Well, the Sword was real good. You already said they brought in another writer for whatever, and that messed up the combustion. I mean, I've seen it a dozen times. If you're sitting there reading this and you like the Luna Brothers and you can't put your finger on this one, they messed up the combustion, the formula,
And then Sara and the Royal Stars is another one that just came. This is a Vault comic, and it's just sort of, I would call it it's a fantasy story. I would call it sort of a young adult story, except for the fact there was like lots of nudity in the last issue. So I don't know how young. So it's a fantasy story about this woman. The artwork's nice, the color's nice. This woman who's like in a royal family, and there's these royal stars who are like godlike. They're super powered, godlike, and it's a fan. All you have to say is it's a fantasy story, and you get the main gist of it.
Nice.
But I've been enjoying that one. And Birthright, which is another one that's almost ending.
That's been around for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, this issue 43, and it's ending at 48. And it's been good.
Yeah. I think I hung out with somebody that had those actually in their car, stuff in their car, in their door. You know, that little space in your door. You can put things in that little pocket. Yeah, he would keep those in there.
Know what's weird about this one? And this is like it's fantasy. It's a magic. This one's kind of magic and superheroes.
Yeah.
It's about a kid who was taken to a whole other world and grew up to be their savior, their chosen one, to save that world from the big evil guy. He never quite did. He's back on Earth. The big evil guy's coming to Earth trying to conquer that too. So that's the basic story. But what's weird about this, I really enjoy the art, but not the covers.
If you take, yeah.
For some reason, I don't think this guy makes very good I've been saying that like the whole series. I really think he's a good artist. He's a good cartoonist. His panel-to-panel stuff is good, but every cover is just kind of lackluster.
Well, from your descriptions, if I take your 2000 XX by the Luna Brothers and that one, I've got the Clive Barker's Nightbreed. You know.
And then, of course, there's Terry Moore, 5 years. I always buy everything Terry Moore. It's always good.
He's awesome. He's
a master of the medium. The latest Savage Dragon. I'm always getting this. And like I said, this is one that it's just amazing. It's been good. What was that?
Was that Dart? Is Dart back?
That's Dart. I think Dart's daughter is now Dart, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
The original Dart is dead.
One of the first rants I could have done back in the 90s if we had YouTube, because I was young, but when I found out that he named the girl Dart, I got all what's the word I'm looking for here? Territorial protective of the Dart from Atari Force that nobody remembers. I'm like, that's not Dart. There's already been a Dart. You know, I mean, I was young. Nobody liked Atari Force. You know, I'm the only one who remembered it. And I'm sitting here like, there was a Dart before her. I just want people.
Darn it, I liked the original Dart.
I want people to know that I just wanted people to know there was a Dart before her. And then I read it and had nothing. They were known with us.
It's just you're like, it's just a name. She throws darts.
But I was young and little,
upset.
Yeah.
I wonder who owns the rights to Atari Force.
Huh?
I wonder who owns the rights to the Atari Force comics.
Well, Atari, the company, is still back, and I know that was
they've been bought and sold a lot of times.
I don't know, but they've never come out with a collected edition of Atari Force, and Atari Force is one of those gems. You get the first 12 issues at least. There's only like 19. There's 20 of them, but those first 12 are. I mean, it's everything you want in a heavily influenced Star Wars movie that has its own identity. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's good sci-fi, but didn't get into. But all that over Dart, I could pull them here. I got them in the box over there, But people who read Atari Force love it,
Yeah. Oh, it was good. I bought it. Whoops. Outcast is another one that's coming to an end. This is issue 45, and it's ending with issue 48. Image likes to end things at 48 because they can get 4 12 issue omnibuses out of it. And this is by Robert Kirkman and Paul Azaceta. And Paul Azaceta is an old bullpenner. I used to work with him at Marvel. Very sort of David Mazzucchelli-ish art, where he's one of these guys. It's funny. It took a while for like David Mazzucchelli's influence to really permeate through comics. But there's a bunch of guys who are kind of very Mazzucchelli-ish.
Man, I really wish he had, I don't know, put out more work after year one or something that you could find. I mean, he was getting better by leaps and bounds. I mean, I
really like Asterios Polyp that I just reread of his. That's good. Have you ever read that one?
No, yeah. But again,
I showed it here a few weeks ago. I actually read it a second time after I just reread it. That's how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah. When it comes to like fight scenes and stuff and choreographing a scene, Mazzucchelli and Paul Smith are two of the best, and nobody really talks about that. Paul Smith has that animation background and stuff. Maybe that helps or whatever it is, but he's got some fight scenes that are just like you can actually see them happening. And Mazzucchelli was the same way with his Batman stuff. I mean, you really believe Batman could take down a SWAT team after they blew up the building he was in,
And then the last one I'm kind of torn on.
The Goon? Yeah.
The Goon.
I caught up on my Goon. I got the last 2 miniseries that came out like 5 years ago. and I read the first issue of this series, and I'm like, something's wrong. What do you think of it?
It's not the problem is the last 2 issues. There's no Eric Powell.
Really?
This is the Goon.
What number is that? 12? Number 12?
Number 10.
Number 10. Okay.
So 9 and 10. This is the Goon by Roger Landridge, Mike Norton, and Marissa. And it's not bad. They actually do a nice job of it.
Yeah.
But when I buy it, I'm like, I want Eric Powell's the Goon. I mean, they do a nice job of it.
Yeah.
But it's not Eric Powell's the Goon.
Yeah, I'm convinced that came out because of the 20th anniversary of Goon, you know.
And the Goon also isn't my favorite of his work.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think. He has, from what I can tell, I haven't really sat down and talked to this guy I'm going to mention in a minute, but there's a guy, he must live like in North Carolina or locally or something, Steve Marion. Marriott. Anyway, he did a lot of pencil work at Albatross Press with Spooky Tales and all that stuff. If you follow any of this, he's at almost all the little cons around here in Heroes Con, and he's a really cool guy. And he's got a bit of that Jack Davis EC feel himself, you know. And he always has his daughter and his wife there at the cons, and the guy's just all happy to be working. I think Eric Powell's got a little bit of a stable now, and that's probably some of the people he put on there.
Yeah. I think.
Before I move on here. 5 years for Eric Larson to beat Dave Sim.
No, that is amazing.
You know, it's an amazing thing. I don't know if you and I have talked about it, but I've talked about it in the podcast before. Even if you did go over, like Todd McFarlane has, go over 300 issues, I still don't think anybody's going to top Sim. He was first. He was the first. I mean, to do something like this, you got to give 25 years of yourself.
It's amazing. I don't even think it's topping anyone. It's just amazing either way. It doesn't, you know, even if
you're joining a club,
right. Even if Eric Larson does 400 issues of Savage Dragon, it's still amazing that Dave Sim did 300. I mean, it's like, wow.
Steve, here we go. Somebody, see, this is why I love doing this stuff. Steve Marion. Yeah, I meet this guy all the time. We actually, Scott Connor and I had a huge, we hung out with him outside of a hotel at Heroes Con a couple years ago. You know, he's a cool guy. What we got here? Paulo. Atari is currently owned by French game publishers, formerly called Infogrames, but they did a reverse takeover name, changed to Atari SA. The French. People saw us before the show. Everything's coming back to the French again. You know, even that awful 90s movie.
But I wonder if they even have access to any of the Atari Force materials. Let's just say Atari, the French game company, now owns the Atari Force comic book.
Yeah.
And let's even say they, for some reason, want to reprint it. Did they even have access to any of the printing materials for it? Or will they just have nothing, I wonder?
It's intellectual property. I mean, I don't have enough to make an informed actual answer.
No. I'm talking about the physical property.
That's what I mean.
The way it works, in order to print something, usually, like what Marvel and DC did for years for their reprints, and why like all that Conan stuff was still around, is Marvel would take stats, which are like big fancy. They're basically a photo stat. It's like taking a photograph of the original art in black for printing, and they'd store it somewhere.
Yeah. And
I think that and those actually belonged to like the Conan property. That was the, but it's like, and the reason, and it's like, I think Marvel was under the obligation, or if you license like Conan, you're under the obligation to give the Conan company like the printing material because they own that. You don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why Dark Horse could reprint all that old Marvel Star Wars stuff. And even if you update it and scan it in and do whatever, you have to give that to the licensee because that's their property. But Atari has been, kicked around so often that the actual physical stuff they would need to print Atari Force, I don't even know if it exists.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it'd be a shame if all that stuff's gone, but they also have those little mini books that came out in the Atari game. Yeah, that's right. Volume 1. That's canon with where they picked up with it.
Who knows if that stuff's still exist. Like Kamiko.
The
They
Elemental.
couldn't.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
They couldn't reprint their stuff because all that stuff disappeared.
Yeah. Man, that's sad, man. I mean, that's why I'm glad I grabbed up all this stuff. But
that might be another reason why Atari Force never gets reprinted, is that it'd be too expensive to reprint because they have to. It's like I was having this discussion with a couple of former editors at Marvel, and I just heard, oh god, who's it? It's pretty popular. There's a show called Comic Tropes.
I know the guy you're talking about. I had some of his videos sent to me.
Right, and he talks about comics, and
I know what he's talking about.
And I just saw some video he was doing on comic book coloring and this and that, and comic book coloring back in the day and comic book coloring now. We need to know if Atari kept the stats with a few exactly. The material might have been destroyed. With all those bankruptcies, who knows where the stats went? They could have just disappeared into the dumpster.
Okay, coming from the reader side of this, here's what would actually make me mad. All this stuff. Let's find out. Let's say Garcia Lopez dies. The artist dies.
Right.
Okay. And then all of a sudden, DC celebrates him, and magically, all his stuff starts getting put out in trades, make a buck off of it.
Right.
He could have done it when he was alive and got royalties. That's the reader side of it. So, so we're sitting here talking about the intellectual stuff, the legal stuff, and then So I hope that doesn't happen. I hate to be that way. Yeah, I would love to be that in Twilight, his Teen Titans stuff. I mean, his actual comic book work. That's not Superman, because he let me know. Well, he let everybody know at Heroes Con, and he knows he speaks some English. Last week I said I was told he couldn't, but I actually remembered I sat in a panel, and he said his dream project was to do Conan, and he hates drawing Superman. Yeah.
But anyway, this guy, Comics Tropes guy, he was once again said, he was just discussing the various sort of how coloring works and this and that, and he was saying, and how, if you got old comics, should you color them brightly on new paper, blah blah blah, and like his opinion was, he's like, and I've heard this so many times, and I even had this discussion with Marvel editors recently. They're like, what I think they should do is just scan from the old comics and do a few tweaks and print it from that. And I'm like, no, you have no idea how complicated that is. I've done it. That is a lot harder to do than to scan in any original art and make it and recolor it and do it. I'm like, you have no idea how hard it is to scan from a printed, especially a color printed comic.
Yeah, like I said, I've got 4 or 5 comics where that's what they did, and they look horrible. Like you really enjoy them. At
best, you can make that look adequate.
Yeah,
and I've had to do it, so I know how hard it is. And I'm just like, you have no idea what it takes to scan from a printed comic and then print it again. It is not just you make a few touch-ups. That you have to reconstruct most of it.
Hold on, La Rosa's here.
La Rosa, hello there.
Sorry, I haven't heard from her since she had her baby. Not to put out.
I see her on Twitter sometimes, but she hasn't been on YouTube much.
Okay, we'll send her a hello. I don't want to put her. I didn't want to put out an ear from her. I spoke before I thought.
She's been drawing too. She posts her drawings on Twitter sometimes.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that was a nice surprise. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So what I've been doing is I've been like cataloging my books, and I have been eBaying and Amazon shopping. I'm glad I reined it in. What's so bad is I still got good deals, but that shipping probably pushed me over the $60 mark. I got stuff coming in today. If I get an alert, you may see me take off to the mailbox, run past the neighbors who forget I live here and ask me to move a car because they have yard sales. And I'm like, I live here, third time I'm telling you. But I actually had a moment there where I'm finally, this had the opposite effect of what I was expecting, man. This gave me the reality of how I've gotten bigger and older. But when I was a kid, to find a book, I would have to go to like a CVS pharmacy or Magic Mart. It had like a little spinner rack. There was no bookstores and stuff around here. So I would grab what I could read if I could find it. Yard sales were great back then when you were walking around with a thing of change because people would have their boxes out trying to get rid of stuff. But This is not this is Return of the Jedi, the novelization, right? From I was like 10 years old. So when I get this thing in the mail and I'm all excited because I have no idea what happened to it, I remember every picture in it. There's 8 pages of pictures from the movie, but I could read these quick. I would get this in Gremlins and whatever movie adaptation was on there that I liked, because you would find out things that weren't in the movie. If you get the Gremlins movie adaptation novel, the first chapter is telling you where the Gremlins came from. I remember being like 12, 10, 11 years old, like, everybody should know this. I thought everybody would be excited. Now, here's the thing. I get this, and these books were quick reads because where I saw the movie, I could just kind of skip through them. I've never read one completely through. But when I took it out of the bag, I remember this thing feeling as thick as Moby Dick, Battlefield Earth, and all this stuff. And my little hands were on it, and it's like only 180 pages, 180. It's so tiny. And I remember being a 10-year-old kid thinking this thing was huge. So when I took it out and I felt it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so old. I remember this thing feeling huge. I mean, I feel like I should have like little stubby hands holding this thing. But yeah, I'm starting to get these 2, 3 of these little books that I had as a kid. I got started with the Howlin' Mad book I showed you, and I'm John Byrne's Fear book is the one to get. It's not a great book, but that thing is pricey. I guess it's the John Byrne fans or something. So yeah, that and the Gremlins. But now to get back to comics, I pulled this out. So as I'm cataloging my comics, I'm pulling little things out. I'm finding stuff I didn't get. Let's see if we can get this up here. Move my microphone. But this is Fantastic Four 319. This is one of the books that, like, it is never. I thought this was going to be huge. I thought this was going to be like some big key book that everybody would try to get and stuff. It's never gone anywhere. It's Secret Wars 3, the third Secret Wars. You had Secret Wars, Secret Wars 2. Secret Wars 3 is where they go and find the Beyonder, and he's not that special. They pull out a whole bunch of other omnipotent characters and stuff like that, and Beyonder kind of runs off with them and is like, well, I'm not that special. Little did I know that this is just one more thing because Jim Shooter left Marvel, and it was one more thing just to like poke at him. Like your Beyonder's not that special. So for decades, I was like, do people not know there was another Secret Wars 3? There was another Secret Wars. Here's the third one.
Secret Wars, I was not. I didn't even. That was just when I was stopping buying mainstream comics altogether. So I think I bought like half of Secret Wars before I gave up on it for the first one, and just never went back.
I love Secret Wars, but I mean, it was the time and age. You know what I mean?
I was too old for Secret Wars.
Yeah. So,
Mind the Comics says there should be plenty of those older Marvel and DC acetates around the world, as that's what they would send abroad for the foreign reprints. Yeah, but I don't know if we were specifically talking about if any Atari Force ones exist. That's what I don't know.
Yeah. The specific one, the specific. I'm just glad I got my Atari Force. I mean, I don't want to be selfish or anything like that. And
I wonder if there's anything that exists if they wanted to print Atari Force again. I just don't know. I think the odds are against it.
I think it'll magically appear if Garcia Lopez passes away. I really do. I think it's going to magically appear.
DC could have some in their archives. That is very true. DC has always been really good about archiving stuff. So I can see them having them in their archives, but never touching them because they can't do anything with them.
All right. Now, we were talking about, it's amazing that I ran across this box, right? We were talking about Barry Windsor Smith last week. We brought up Rune, and a lot of people don't know about Rune. So it's from Malibu. Yeah, there we go. But this is some of his best artwork. I mean, I have a Marvel Comics Presents with a Wolverine facing the other way in the same pose. But basically, this character Rune, a very old vampire. His mouth unhinges like a snake. He doesn't turn into a bat. He's got those bat wings that are very organic, and they feel like stretched. They feel like stretched skin. I mean, this book is very organic. Yeah, I would blow you up if I could, but they don't let me do it anymore.
Yeah, I remember getting. Let's see, what year did this come out?
I think
1994. I remember buying these just because it was Barry Windsor Smith and really enjoying them.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's only like 5 of them, I think he did.
Yeah.
And to announce it, you would get 2 pages for 2 months, I think, in every Malibu book in that Ultraverse. You would get like 2 pages of the story.
By the way, I have
a chapter printed.
Just as an aside, I have no idea what this bag is because there's no flap on it. And it looks like it was cut at the top of it. I'm like, what's going on with this bag? I've never seen another bag like this in my collection.
Yeah. Now, check this out. We showed all that great Barry Windsor Smith stuff, and I don't know what was going on at Malibu. Maybe this is when Marvel bought him out or something. But they went from this Renaissance-like artwork of Barry Windsor Smith to this after he left.
Wow. And there's 5 issues and a giant size rune.
Yeah.
With the first look of Rune Silver Surfer #1.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to show here.
There we go. Who did that one?
Well, that's a John Buscema cover. And no, it's a Barry Windsor Smith cover, excuse me. It's also a flip book with John Buscema on the other side.
Ah.
And but let's see who did do this one. Some guy named Mark McKenna. I kind of think that's an Image guy.
I know. He was. I remember him. He was an.
There's
some Flint sketches.
Mm-hmm. Nice. There's some
Did
Buscema
Flint
art.
Henry draw some of? He might have drawn some of Deathlock.
Might have.
That might be where I know. Not Deathlock. Grimjack. Flint Henry may have drawn some Grimjack. And this giant size is only layouts by Barry Windsor Smith, but it still looks pretty Barry Windsor Smith-ish.
Now, in that glut of the 90s, the stuff that was out when all kinds of books were out, it was this issue actually that I thought Rune was going to be huge at some point. Yeah. Because when he put Rune in the Hyborian Age with Conan, I mean, he had Barry Windsor Smith coming back to Conan. He's writing, drawing, and coloring this, and Rune fit right in with the Hyborian Age. It was perfect. It's like he set him up to be a monster out of time. I think he was woke up because they dropped a nuclear bomb during some testing or something. It's been a while since I read it. But apparently, I think he was hibernating. He was a very old, ancient vampire. He got hit with a nuclear bomb, and that's why he has to feed off people with powers, whatever they call ultras. I think that's what they called them. So that's what he had to eat on, or he would suffer, and he was pulling magic from his runes to help sustain him and stuff. It was very, very good. But
there is a 6th issue of the Barry Windsor Smith runes.
There we go.
6 issues and an annual.
Yeah. But Rune was a real underrated character. But when he was in that Conan book that I just showed you, I mean, Rune is a monster from another time, and Barry Windsor nailed it. It was really good.
Like I said, I haven't read these probably since '95, but I remember liking them a whole lot and being disappointed when it ended.
Yeah. When he left.
I just happen to I have a section for artists, which I swiped. So it's like all my Barry Windsor Smith random little stuff is in one spot. So here, this one is from the early '80s. Pacific Comics, Pathways to Fantasy.
Faraday.
I remember having a poster or 2 in this style.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think in the 90s, he really shined, man. And I was telling you that I found an old Wildstorm, whatever it was. Wildstorm had some big crossover. It wasn't Fire from Heaven. It was the one before that. But I found Barry Windsor Smith did one of the bookend books. And it's like he showed them Image Boys how to do it. I mean, it was one big, huge fight. It had all these Wildstorm characters in it. There was streets of New York were all battered and busted like a war zone, and these twisted metal cars. And I was just sort of like, there you go, It
was John Bolton artwork in Pathways to Fantasy.
Oh, nice. Yeah, John Bolton and John J. Muth. I'm really starting to get into their stuff again here lately.
Nice
those
stuff.
Painters, those watercolor painters from the 80s and stuff like that. Good stuff.
Nice stuff.
Now the Rune stuff. Here's the one I can't wait to talk about. I mean, you talk about lame. All right, this book. This is a Batman Detective Comics 567 from 1986, and it's written by Harlan Ellison. If everybody should know who that is, right? So Harlan Ellison gets on here, and the first thing you see on the first page is a little banner that's saying, "Hey, Julius Schwartz, here's my promise kept after 15 years." So he had 15 years that apparently he promised to write a Batman story, and it is the lamest thing I've ever read, especially from Harlan Ellison. I mean, I was really disappointed. I've had this set. I got 2 copies. I've had it sitting here for a couple years. I finally flipped through and read it like in 3 minutes. But the whole premise is that Batman tries to stop 3 crimes. And every time he stops a crime, he ends up calling the police because the people he's trying to save took care of it. Some lady gets mugged and she beats the mugger down with a pocketbook. And she was like, "Hey, Mr. All Dark and Shady, go call the cops." And the cops even start like picking on him when he's on the phone calling them, like, "You again?" Yeah, he's like, "Yeah, I know." And he's like praying and all this stuff that something happens and he can feel useful. Alfred comes walking through at 4 a.m. He's just gave up sitting on his chair. Like, I don't want to talk about it. That's how it ends. I'm like, this is from Harlan Ellison. 15 years to write that.
No, I have like Harlan Ellison used to have a YouTube channel where I'd go and I'd listen to him talk. But it's like I don't think I've read that much Harlan Ellison actual prose. I've read Harlan Ellison essays. I've seen him talk about stuff, but I haven't really read much of his work. Harlan
Ellison and Ray Bradbury, and it drives some of my friends. Well, it used to drive them nuts. They've accepted it now, but you gotta understand, when I would read this stuff, I'd have like, I've still got some of the books. It'd be like little short stories with a bunch of different authors. But the way I grew up, the way those little stories were when I ran across them, I take Ray Bradbury and I take Harlan Ellison, and they're one writer to me. I get their stuff mixed up. That's why I don't mention them too much on my channel. That's why I don't, I'm real careful. I know the stories when you tell me about them, but I would lose on who wrote what. They just merge for me. I can't help it. But
I know I read the Martian Chronicles. That was
Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, I remember reading that one as a teen and enjoying it.
Well, I watched that as a TV show. It's on YouTube. The Martian Chronicles they did in the 70s on television with Barney Miller is on YouTube. But and that was like one of the first sci-fi things I can actually remember before Star Wars or around Star Wars or something. But the thing that got me is Harlan Ellison created Jarella and did like a great Hulk story back in the 70s.
So Heart of the Atom?
Yeah. The brute who yelled from the heart of the atom or something, right? The beast that yelled. I don't know. I have it.
I bought that when it came out in hardcover a few years ago and reread it, and it holds up well.
Yes. So now you get it. So now all of a sudden, here comes Harlan Ellison on Batman. What's he going to do? He's had more time to do this. Apparently, he didn't have Roy Thomas poking him or something. What is this crap? What is this? I'd have called him out on it. I would have called him out on this. Like, Harlan, you want me to print this?
Well, I find it's rare that non-comic book writers do a good job on comic books.
Oh my God. Brad Meltzer does. He makes people mad, but Brad Meltzer's all right. Jeff Loeb came in. I can name some people.
Some are okay, but you can't even name all the ones who came and went, who didn't stick. All those TV writers who they were hiring all through the double O's.
I don't count those guys. I know what you're talking about. I agree with you. I don't count those guys. Stephen King came in and did a few little things in the 80s, and they hold up well. He did that X-Men charity book, Heroes for Hope. He did a little bit of Batman here. I mean, he's probably done like a total of like 4 pages that I know of. Seems like he did something for American Vampire of Snyder, but I never read it. But anyway, even Stephen King came in and did some all right stuff,
Yeah.
Like, it's like he didn't suck. That's a better way to put it. It's not that it was great. He didn't suck,
Mm-hmm. But it's hard to write comic books if you're some other kind of writer. It's not like you because you're a TV writer, you can step in and write Spider-Man. Doesn't mean even though a lot of companies thought that for a while.
I think Neil Gaiman's a success story. That's because he had Alan Moore explaining to him how to write a script. He showed him, and then he went go. You know what I mean?
Well, he also didn't start out a success story. He worked. That actually reminds me of. I tried to find it before this show because I wanted to address it. There was a comment from somebody from one of our shows from a few weeks ago. I went to look for it and couldn't find it. About a guy who was saying, Why doesn't Marvel or DC just take some of that Disney money and hire all the best writers to do their comics? And I'm like, and that's what people dream of when they first start working. If you like get it, because I've actually heard like assistant editors say this. They go to Marvel, and it's kind of their dream job, and they want to be the guy to go out and hire all the best writers and best artists and make the best comics. About to go to check my Metal Man video. I will.
Oh, I'll comment on that afterwards. I just want to make sure I didn't forget. I was going to give him a personal. Yeah, I got your link, but we had to do the show. Yeah, so okay.
But anyway, the reason why that's the dream, to go work at Marvel or DC and then go, I'll hire Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore and whoever your favorite writers are, and I'll we'll make the best comics ever. Barry Windsor Smith will draw them, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it never works out that way, because first of all, who are you? You're nobody. Second of all, Marvel and DC generally want to put out the comics spending as least money as possible. All the best writers and artists are hard to get because they have options.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Neil Gaiman hasn't written a comic for DC in how long? Because he doesn't have.
Well,
he doesn't have to.
I'm trying to think of some names, but I have seen the interviews or read the interviews or seen the documentaries where these writers just admit to go to Hollywood to make the money. This is something I do for fun if I feel like doing it. I've heard that for 25 years. Those are
the mediocre writers.
Yeah.
I'm talking good ones. Like Neil Gaiman, why is he going to do work for hire for DC when he can write novels and get TV shows made out of them?
But he's overseeing all the books that are messing with his Sandman characters, and those are
they paid him some money to use his name,
right? And he's acting like he's all involved. Yeah,
so it's like people always say, why don't they just hire the best of the best? It's like, because they can't hire them. The best of the best have options, and doing work for hire for Marvel or DC isn't their best option.
Yeah, I say it's kind of heartbreaking when they get in there. Like Kevin Smith's the guy that comes to mind for two reasons, right? Seth Rogen came to Hollywood and he had a list of stuff he wanted to do, where he said one of his, bucket list things in Hollywood was to be in a Kevin Smith movie. Then he found out how much money those movies make, and he was like, "Oh no," Then you have Kevin Smith, who came in and he nailed it with Daredevil, but he wasn't in for the long game. He had a story, and the story really just rehashed what he read as a kid. I mean, he kind of continued Miller's stuff. If you go back to the 90s, I ended up selling those books, when I figured out what he did. It was great while it was going on, but then he came in and he
at least loves and respects comics.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Well, not those words, but he's doing the things that he loves. And he does it because he loves comics. His Green Arrow run was great, but then he did this Daredevil miniseries and a Spider-Man miniseries. It took years to finish, and they accommodated him to where Bullseye couldn't be in the real Daredevil book for years, and it messed up the storyline. And he just admitted it, like, and then what does he do? He put a bunch of guys from Marvel in some of his movies. Joe Quesada plays before that happened, Joe Quesada was delivering pizza and got to make out with the international jewel thieves. I saw some quid pro quo going on there.
Oh yeah, we know how the world works.
but Kevin Smith's the guy who's like done the best for comics for awareness and making it kind of cool for a whole generation. But then he's turned around, he's really messed up some stuff.
He's a good ambassador for comics.
He is a good ambassador.
Yeah. I haven't paid much attention to his writing for comics. I did just watch Jay and Silent Bob the reboot or whatever it was. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, to me that's made for the people who saw all the movies. I have it. We have it on digital. Yeah, I have the Blu-ray and the digital. Yeah,
whatever the name is, the new one.
Chris Hemsworth is in it, and he's for moments, and he's hilarious. I mean, it was perfect.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. The last thing that I'm finally getting around to reading, and I know I totally got excited about this when it was coming out, but I couldn't. I think my son was born, so I couldn't get to this. That just wasn't a priority. I'm not blaming my son. I'm just saying it wasn't a priority.
The comics kind of took the back seat. You mean?
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. But this is the Superman: The Dark Side, where Superman lands on Apocalypse instead of Earth.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
It's a 3-issue prestige. There was 2 miniseries that I wanted to get that nobody really talks about. It's this one, right? And I've already read the first issue. It's not going to blow you away. It's just a solid comic book story, however you want to put that. You know what I mean? And it's a little contrived. And the other one was the Doom That Came to Gotham, where Mike Mignola came in there. It's a sequel. I think it is a sequel to oh my God, what was the first Elseworld story where Batman, Gotham by Gaslight? It's a sort of a sequel to Gotham by Gaslight, and it's called The Doom That Came to Gotham. It's huge HP Lovecraft stuff with Mike Mignola.
I'll meet Batman Houdini. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
I've never showed you this before. Where'd it go? Batman Houdini.
All right.
This is an Elseworlds by Howard Chaykin wrote it. Mark Chiarello did the art.
I'm in right there.
But Mark Chiarello was the longtime DC Comics art director. He just got fired a couple of years ago. Very dumb because he really knows what he's doing. But this was before he was art director. And he was, he used to hang out at Marvel all the time. So one day when I was in the bullpen, he asked me if I wanted to pose for him because he needed a guy. So that guy right there is me posing in a hat for Mark Chiarello. And then Batman beats me up. That's me. And these 3 panels is me. And that right there, being beat up and on the ground, is me.
That's hilarious.
So if you ever get it, I got beat up by Batman in this issue.
That's on my radar to get. That is hilarious.
Well, now you have to get it.
Somebody years ago, I'll never find it. Back in the days when I just sported the Van Dyke, not the goatee, just bottom beard here for you, people can remember that. Somewhere online, my first year or two, somebody came on one of the live streams right when you could start leaving comments and stuff, and then they ended up sending me a picture of it. But they had like this old omnibus from some comics from the '60s, and he found me in it from like 1962, an actual beatnik that looked like me. Had the eyebrows and everything, and I was looking at this, and I was like, "I'll get that." I made a mental note, never ended up getting it. So yeah, I cannot wait to get that Houdini thing, man. I'm gonna like spread it everywhere on Facebook. Like, yeah, this. Now I'm gonna show something that might kill 10 years of credibility if I haven't killed it already. But I was one of those guys that rolled my eyes at this when I heard about it coming out. I rolled my eyes when I saw it at this comic book shop. So how I ever got this, I don't know if it was given to me. I don't know if it was in a box lot. I don't know if I just went ahead and said, what the hell, and had an extra $1. Then I read it and I was like, this works. This shouldn't work, but it works. The Punisher versus Archie actually works. It feels like an old plot from like Andy Griffith or something, but there's a criminal from Riverdale that goes back to Riverdale or something that looks like Archie, and the Punisher is trying to track him down. I mean, it's not an original plot, but I think that's why it works. I think they found some old movie. I'm convinced they found some old movie, and it has a little bit of touch of like a film noir thing if you're astute. But it's just fun and it works. And John Buscema drawing Punisher in Riverdale and stuff. I was like, I mean, I'm really looking around my apartment in the night, at the time, like, this shouldn't work. This shouldn't work.
I've heard a lot of people praise that, but I've somehow never read it.
That's what I'm trying to get. It's not bad. It's a fun story and it works. So like you don't have this whole thing where you feel like it's contrived and they forced them, they meshed them. Mm-hmm. No, man, it's really good. It's better than Superman, Spider-Man, the first one.
I mean, Paolo says that prestige format books were a great format. I can't believe publishers got rid of them. I hate that format. I really do. I just don't like it because they don't open. I mean, that just bothers me. It's like I never liked the square bound prestige format. DC still does it though. Mm-hmm. And that they have their new Black Label format is like this, only bigger.
I got some Black Label books here. I think they were a bit more like a heavy stock cardstock magazine, because you can actually the Superman I got.
They're square bound. They're square bound, those ones. I know because I didn't want to buy them because they were square bound. The square bound one and the Joker one and the Batman one, they're all square. I just don't like that. I think it's called perfect binding. I don't think it works. It doesn't work that well for me as a comic because it won't lay flat. Yeah. I prefer my comics to lay flat. That's all it is. I mean, they're printed nicely.
Yeah, I like how they sit on the shelf, and I can actually see
what they look. They do look nice on the shelf. There's no doubt about that. But I prefer to make them easier to read.
Yeah, I have my Lone Wolf and Cub. I have my Nausicaa over there, the epic stuff with the Hellraiser. Like, I can sit here and I'm blind without my glasses, but
you're actually supposed to fold these open on that little
line. There's a little indentation.
No comic fan can do that.
No.
Just can't.
The indentation is worthless. I do hate when you get a new. I mean, it's the same thing as like old Steranko books when he started the 4-page splash pages and stuff. If you gotta have a reader's copy, which is why I'll pick one up for nothing and then leave the other one there, because when you read them, that crease starts doing color breaks and stuff. I mean, that kills me. But
LaRasa loves the prestige format. Yeah, some people do. I just don't.
Oh, what is this? Paulo's all over this again.
There used to be hardcover and softcover of their albums. Now they're speaking of French albums, I'll show you this one that my friend Jerry, who gave me a whole bunch of comics recently that I have to go through and sell some of them. Gave me this French album.
Yeah, you showed me that for sure. I'm gonna go grab something real quick while you show them that.
Okay, this is Milo Manara. I can't read it. It's all in French. My high school French was my worst class. So, Milo Manara and Valentino Rossi. But I think it's about motorcycle racing. There's look, motorcycle racing pages. Well, this is definitely that French graphic album format because it's a hardcover graphic album. Where is I think there's some. What's his name? Jim Morrison from The Doors. And there's Steve McQueen. Where's Steve McQueen? He's in here somewhere too. The ghost of Steve McQueen he might be because he's colored weirdly. There we go. He's colored all in yellow. So there's Steve McQueen. I don't know what the story's about, but it looks real cool because it's Milo Manara and they give you, end papers of Milo Manara women. Always good. I don't know if there's any nudity in the book itself because it's about racing. But yeah, he's talking to the ghost of Jim Morrison too, as well as the ghost of Steve McQueen. So I'm looking forward to just flipping through this one and seeing what it is.
Yeah, just a side note here. When you showed me that before we went on air, I meant to tell you I've got a James O'Barr issue that I want to dig out. And I got to talk to James O'Barr about it, but he took a guy that was in a 1970 Roadrunner and had the Wile E. Coyote trying to catch that Roadrunner. And I actually got to talk to James O'Barr about that story, and he just kind of looked at me like I felt like he was about to say, "So you're the one that bought that," Yeah. I love when you talk about the racing aspect of that and stuff like that. I'm like, this O'Barr issue was great,
Eric Larson actually did say that to me.
You're the one. You're the one about that.
It was last October. I actually made it to. I actually made it to the New York Comic Con. I usually don't go, but my friend Ed was like, "You want to use my pass for the day? Just give it back to me when I'm done." So I went in there, and like I said, most Comic Cons are like social events for me. I talk to people I haven't seen in a while, and one of those people was Chris Eliopoulos, who is an artist. He's He's a longtime letterer. He lettered Eric Larson's Savage Dragon for like 150 issues. And he also, I think he does illustrations with Brad Meltzer. Brad Meltzer writes books, and he does children's books for him. Chris does. And so Chris was there, and like he was, and Eric Larson was there too. And Chris was over at Eric's table. And I went over, I was talking to Chris, and I was like, and I'd never met Eric Larson before. And I was like, oh, I should say hello to Eric Larson because I've been buying his comic all these years. So Chris introduces me, and I'm like, yeah, I've been, your comic's been on my pull list for years. And he's like, oh, you're the one, huh? I was like, yep. So he actually said that line.
That is awesome, man. I think I've had a couple comic book guys tell me that at these cons. I'm sure, yeah. As soon as we get off here, I'll be like, oh yeah, that guy and that guy. Now, we're talking about these European guys. You said the French comic, and that's what I have. One of my friends that I still work with, her husband and his family is from England. So like around, I don't know what it was, 2000. I'm pretty sure it was pre 9/11. They, she ended up in France while she was touring some Europe with them, and was looking for the comic books. She was going to get me one. She knew I was into them. She didn't know. So she's walking around, was looking for like a spinner rack and little kids running around. And she found this because she saw all the businessmen in their French black trench coats and stuff, and hair slicked back, looking much like this guy. And she just got me this, and it's completely in French. We're going 19 years, 20 years of having this. So I'm just sitting around, and I've had people try to read it, and high school French doesn't go very far. This is common language French is what I've been told. You know what I mean? They tried to give me excuses why they couldn't read it after they were bragging they knew the French. So, but I absolutely love Tardy, which was in here, and it's film noir, and I was still able to kind of follow the story without being able to read it. I actually did some Google. I put some of the word balloons, typed them out in Google. It doesn't help. But the thing about it, this guy, Tardy, I got obsessed with him for a little bit. And I don't mean obsessed like I was wanting to be manic about it. It's just he stayed in the back of my mind. I just wanted to know more and more about him because I didn't know if this was his name. Turns out this was the character's name. I thought this, I didn't know. Yeah, you got me. I couldn't figure it out because, and I want to talk about me for just a minute here, is like in like 88 and 89, I did a strip in computer class in high school. We had the floppy disks, and I just wasn't interested. Computer math is what they called it. Well, in that computer math class, the last 30 minutes of the class every day, I did a strip, or at least worked on it, called Pistols and Pansies, based on Guns N' Roses. In my artwork, I'm not saying that I was a Tardy, but I was on the same road with the same kind of line work and style and cartoony stuff. So to see this work, I was like, what could have been? I was on the same path. In my mind, So when I saw this, Pistols and Pansies, just something I did in my notebooks and stuff instead of doing my computer math,
Seeing that just reminded me of my foreign comics that I got in my youth. One I got, one of my parents' friends went to, I think it was Greece, and bought me back a Greek comic. And I think it was a Hagar the Horrible in Greek. I still have that somewhere, but the funny story was when I was in college, my friend and roommate Tom was like, oh, my mother and father are going to Japan. Do you want anything? I'm like, oh, pick me up a Japanese comic. This is like 1987. There weren't a lot of Japanese comics around. I'm like, I go. But it turns out at that time, the most popular Japanese comics were sadomasochistic sex comics. So I got a story. My friend comes back and goes and slams a big, thick Japanese comic down on the table and goes, there you go. Thanks a lot. You made my mother go into a sex store. This is the only one that didn't have dirty pictures in it. I was like, oh, sorry.
Oh my gosh. I was married from 97 to 2005. So we're going to say the late 90s. We ended up in Johnson City, Tennessee. And it was the first time I saw Books A Million. And it was like nothing but a great big huge building. And the books were like dirt cheap. And I found the manga section. And I go over there and I see these kids there and these teenage girls there and stuff. So I'm feeling kind of weird keeping my distance. So I just kind of pick up a book, not what I'm looking for at all. And I open it up and it's bondage and slimy penises. And I'm the only adult in this section. I just kind of put it up. I slowly walked out as cool as I could. You know what I mean?
Looking for the cops.
I was like, I'm getting loud again.
Paolo says Valentino Rossi is a famous motorcycling world champion.
Yeah, I popped that up.
Promotional graphic novel. Okay, I didn't know there was promotional graphic novels for. Yeah, the term hentai didn't come around for a long time. The term hentai wasn't around in 1987.
Or yeah, and it wasn't popularly known in the 90s. If it was even around there. Yeah. Here we go. I don't know what Funtanari is, but I got a feeling I have to.
But it's got to be bad if it's compared to hentai.
2005, we're on there.
Yeah. I don't think I heard the term hentai until around the 2000s.
I didn't hear it until after YouTube days because that's when sites started having like videos they were making of popular cartoons, you know, stuff like that. But anyway, just to finish off get my OCD out of the way, Fantagraphics came out with 3 or 4 of these, and it was people on YouTube telling me about these. But they're finally taking they got some of Tardy's stuff and put it in English, and this Fog Over the Tolbiac Bridge. Holy cow, this is fantastic. Right. It's just fantastic. It's French. Watch me get it wrong now. It's film noir, but I think it's German occupied France during the World War II. That's just the back setting. It's all about the detective stuff and the setting that's going on. It's so good. So good.
I know I have his, it was The War of the Trenches.
Yeah.
I think that's the last Tardy graphic novel I got. I haven't gotten one in a while. That was a while ago.
Yeah, Nestor Burma. And I know there's people who are fans of this that's going to run across this, and they're just going to be like, these guys don't know what they're talking about. Well, that's correct. We're trying to learn. I am. But Nestor, I've tried to look him up on YouTube, and apparently he's had TV shows that are in French that were on YouTube. They don't have the captions and stuff made on YouTube to put it in English and stuff. But yeah, I really tried to dig after I got a name and stuff. And I'm like, this guy is like their Sherlock Holmes or something over there. You know?
I think I was published in a comic that Jacques Tardy was published in many years ago. I forgot that. Many, many years ago, I used to do this comic called Organics, which was this weird mix of images and narration. And Fantagraphics actually bought one of them once. And I think it was, what's the name of it? Graphic Story Monthly. And I think Jacques Tardy was in there too with my story. So I actually did appear in a comic with in a different part of a comic. I haven't looked at that in a long time.
Do you
I did those all for the 90s, but no one liked them but a few people. They're very strange.
I'm being dead serious here. I mean, just turn around here, but do you have like a bibliography somewhere of your work?
I do not have enough work to have a bibliography. I can tell you, I self-published 6 comics that no one bought in the 90s.
Okay.
If you ever want those, just PayPal me some postage, and I'll mail them to anyone who wants them. I still got 1,000 copies of the 6 issues out in my garage.
We'll be talking.
97, 98, I think they're from. And I think it was like I was in an issue of Marvel Age. I don't know. Hold on a second.
This is awesome. I'm gonna be PayPaling to get those books.
Marvel Age '89. I just happen to be hanging around the office.
I don't have that.
The books we saw, one was an anthology called Kansas Thunder, and the next was Delia Charm. That had 2 issues that continued my story. Well, this was when I was in the bullpen, and just one day I was sitting around practicing my inking, and Barry Dutter, who was the editor on this, was walking around looking for something to put in Marvel Age. I was like, oh, cool. He's like, how about I give them to John Romita and have him do a critique? I was like, okay. So where are we? Somewhere in here.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Well, you're talking about that. About a rare as possible, like Creed and Hall of Heroes stuff. I just whipped out a Hall of Heroes the other day that I looked at this thing. And I'm like, where in the crap did I get that? But yeah,
there we go. New talent, Jared Osborne. It says up there, and it's just I was practicing my inking over some Gene Colan pages, and it's just John Romita giving me a critique.
Oh, that's cool.
That was a cool little 2 pages. Or was it 3? Yeah.
Oh, man. All right, I'm going to sit down.
Fun to get a critique from John Romita.
That is awesome.
But that's 1990, Marvel Age 89.
Well, for people, for people who are actually were seriously interested in PayPal you, though, how can they message you or whatever they need to do?
JaredOsborne@gmail.com. You can message me there. Here, if you want me to show you them, let me go get a copy.
Man, I love when people bring up very rare comics like Hall of Heroes and stuff, and I'm like, how can somebody else out there know about this and stuff? Because I'm not even sure how I ended up buying it. It's gonna kill me. As soon as we're off here, I'm gonna end up finding it. I can just tell.
Here's how I store them so I can give them to anyone who asks. Is they're like all 6 are in a Silver Age bag.
That's awesome. Well, you don't mind plugging your stuff, do you? I mean,
here, this is like my friend Kansas Thunder this was my story. We did an anthology, my friends and I. This is back in 1997, I think it was. 1998. The Fetid People. That's the horror story my friend did. So there's 4 of these issues. And then I continued my story a little in a 2-issue micro series.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's what I was doing back in 1998. But let me tell you, 1998 was not a good year for indie comics.
Oh, that is
no one was buying stuff. Holy cow. Black and white comics too. This is before everything was in color.
Oh, hold on here. Let me look at something here. Hall of Heroes. Well, I'm definitely going to be PayPal you at some point here. So that's amazing. Hold on. I'm going to show one more thing here. You want to wrap it up here in a minute? We've been on a little bit over an hour, and some stores are opening up around here and stuff. And I have somebody here in the house that's determined to get out of the house today. So I don't blame her at all. So, but let me answer this question for Scott there. And everybody, I can't wait to read these books. I'm not going to lie. This is going to be cool. Hall of Heroes do you have? Let me check my app here. I tell you what, doing these apps and stuff, this thing better not disappear like the last one I used. Hall of Heroes. But whoever this Creed was, dude, man, he was a huge Todd McFarlane fan because... All right, here it is. Let me get it up here. If you can actually see this, this is the issue I have, Hall of Heroes 1A, and that's the actual cover to the book. And the rest of the book is exactly like that through the whole thing. Huh. Now, I'm not putting it down, but when I saw that, I thought it was one of my friends that had self-published around here. I've had a friend do a book called Bear King. Sadly enough, I can't think of what Dennis's book is, but it's real autobiographical. I've got about probably like 5 or 6 books here and stuff of people that have self-published around here.
Right.
So when I saw that Hall of Heroes, it was number 1. So I have number 1 of the Hall of Heroes. I have no idea if it's worth anything. Scott Neely says that issue's right in front of me. Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, you ready to wrap this up there?
You keep looking that way, so I think you're ready to wrap this up.
Getting nervous. I'm getting nervous. I'm this chill little puppy walking through the house, and I'm waiting for this kitten just to come out of nowhere and pounce me. Nah, it's cool. I got 2-3 things to do. That would just like have me do something,
right.
Make a butt of myself on camera, like I want to turn the camera around on you. But cool, man. Thanks for how you popped in, Jared. Hopefully you get like a big, but a lot of people coming in like, where's I want the book, So everybody check out Jared's book there and bug him on his channel if you end up getting them and stuff. So all right, thanks a lot, everybody. Be excellent. Later.
Okay, bye.